I'm Rain. I've been in Be Nice for like a year and 3 months. Not the oldest, but I've been around for a while. I took a long break throughout a lot of 2020, but I am back now. I've been back for, I don't know, maybe 3 weeks or so. I mostly make my ISK station trading. You know, I've done everything from mining when I started the game. I did ratting out in nullsec. I even did level 4 missions for a while. Let's see, faction warfare, really profitable, at least back in the day, especially LP. Incursions for a long time. I made, many billions doing incursions. I ran with some of the more experienced high SP blingy ship incursion fleets. And, profits there were really great, but I'm gonna be honest, not as great as a lot of other things, once you get used to EVE and more experienced. Ratting in wormholes, great ISK there as well. So I've been dabbling around all sectors of EVE and where to make profits, and station trading is kind of where I ended up. I'm not going to claim it's the most profitable. I'm also not going to claim it's the easiest, but I think it has a kind of low barrier to entry, and once you understand the fundamentals of it, it's actually pretty good for just AFK profit. So that's me in a nutshell. Most of the time, I actually prefer to PvP. I prefer to be undocked and doing stuff. So that kind of influences the way that I trade to an extent. And by that, I mean, you can absolutely go crazy with profits if you spend all of your time doing it. What I'm going to be covering here in this short class we're doing is how to still make good ISK, but without spending too much time. So I can log into an alt, check things out once a day at most, and then I go back to my other characters and I'm making ISK throughout the day doing nothing. So that's me. I just really like to take things casual. I don't like to put too much effort into something, so I'll put 120% effort at the beginning, figure out the optimal way to do it, and then I like to have it set and forget. So yeah, that's me. I'm gonna go ahead and cover skills now, just gonna dive into the list. So first things first, trade skills. You'll notice that while I do have some decent level 5 skills, these are kind of things that I've started training now that I just have a lot of spare time and I have a multiple character training going. But these aren't really actually necessary. I made quite a bit of ISK even when I was an alpha character. Just not doing much, very low SP. It does limit you in the sense that you're not going to be able to do an absolute ton of trades. You aren't going to be able to put up like 200 orders. You're going to have worse margins. You're not going to be able to buy and sell items putting up orders in different systems. So you have to trade where you are. So there are certainly limitations. But you can also certainly go from 0 ISK to plexing your account within a month on an alpha character with a lot of these skills locked away from you. So all of these, in fact, this should almost go as one of the common misconceptions in trading. All of these are very much not necessary. These will increase your profits. They will make things easier. It'll increase your quality of life, but they're not necessary. They just help. Some of the basic ones, certainly you do want to trade up, such as accounting. This is going to reduce your taxes, so your margins are wider. If you would make $1 million on a trade with accounting 5, and then broker relations, advanced broker relations with these things at 5, instead of making $1 million, you might make 1.1 million, or maybe 1,050,000, right? So it certainly increases your margin. And when you're trading in things like minerals, where you have a very, very, very narrow margin to begin with, these skills might be the difference between losing ISK on a trade or making ISK, and then you make your ISK on the volume of materials being moved. So there are some limitations there, but if you're trading very wide margin items, then this doesn't really help you. 5%, 2% difference in margin when you're making 200% margin on an item largely irrelevant. So you can start up a trade alt today, start trading, have none of these skills, and you're a-okay. So that's basically skills in a nutshell. You don't really need them. They certainly help. Quality of life is great. You don't really need them. Let's talk good trade hubs. So I was talking about the margin on items, and while there are a lot of great hubs to trade in, and especially JITA, everyone's drawn to JITA, it's really not necessary. You can make a lot of ISK in other hubs. For example, you will see I'm currently trading in Amar. I do now trade in JITA because I think there's a bit of a turning point where once you have enough capital that you're working with, you can make a lot more ISK, and a super high volume hub like JITA or Amar. But until you're trading with 30 to 50 billion, it's not really necessary. You can totally make your money here. As you can see, my character, if I pull up my character sheet again, I'm currently sitting on an 18.6 billion net worth on this tune. I just transferred like a couple billion to my new JITA alt. I transferred a couple billion to my main PvP character. I've transferred assets around, so I've made a lot more than this station trading. And this is not doing a ton of time. This is just casual trades. So with that being said, I wouldn't really recommend a lot of the other hubs. I would mostly recommend sticking to Amar or JITA, but you can make any of them work. This is just what's worked for me. Tools of the trade. I'm gonna go ahead and pull up, well, I don't have the list put together. There are basically a couple. I'll go ahead and put them in chat after this, but the biggest one you're going to want is atom4eve.eu. Let's bring this over here. Atom4eve.eu is very wonderful. It looks dated as heck. It's certainly not the prettiest site, but it is by far the best tool. I'm not going to go over it in too much detail today because I could spend hours just diving into this tool alone and how I use this website to make billions of profit with like virtually no effort whatsoever. It is so good at analyzing the market. In fact, I'll just show you really quick. I'm going to go deeper into this in the section where I talk about identifying good items, but just to give you an idea, let's say I want to go to Amar, VIII, Emperor Family Academy, and I want to look for ships. I might need to put that in the category above. Yeah, ship. And I want minimum trades of 20. And I am wanting to put some decent money into this. So I only want to see two more. I only want to see items that trade 300 million volume per day. Right, and now I can look at the ISK traded in the market. I can see the 7-day volume, rolling averages, how many people are buying, how many people are selling. Really wonderful detail. You can't really get this in EVE, in the in-game graph. Absolutely powerful tool. Another great tool that I use quite often is JEVE Assets. I use this tool to track my actual market orders so that I can take them and calculate out my profits. I can take all of my orders for a certain item across multiple regions, multiple characters, and find, what margins I'm making on average, how much competition I have, how much ISK am I losing in broker fees, all kinds of metrics. So that's JEVE Assets. JEVE Assets is wonderful. Highly recommend it. There's some other great ones. I'm going to talk about EVE ISK per hour. This is one that I use quite often. In this tool, you can identify how much it costs to build an item, a commodity, and how much money you're going to make. So I pulled up one random example. This is Scourge Rage Heavy Assault Missile, and this is calculating based on Amar. So if I were to buy all these materials in Amar, and I had the BPC for the T2 missiles, and I built it, it would cost me 14.7 million to make 200,000 units, And that's really important. Now, there are other things in here. If you're an industrialist or you want to use this to make money, certainly check everything else out. But the part that's really, really relevant for me is how much does it cost to build? And that's if I buy everything from the market. Now, let's say I were to manufacture these 2 items, drops it down to 12.3 million. So I can use this as an idea of what are the components running for, and then I can take the Scourge Rage Heavy Assault Missile, and I can see 200,000 units at, let's say I put them up for 114.3. So 200,000 times 114.3. This would net 22.8 million. Over here, I can see that it costs 12 million. So one, this is a great item to trade, to build for profit. In fact, if someone wants to come in here, you're gonna make a couple hundred million probably. But why is it relevant for me? This is relevant to me because I can use this to find out what an item is truly worth. Not what the market tells me it's worth, but what it's truly worth. I've seen a lot of people come into the market and I put up items for sale at double the manufacturer cost, and they still buy them in absolute bulk. I've also seen people buy them for a lot more or worse than they are. So, you know, knowing the actual value of something is incredible. A great example for this right now are battleships. If you've seen the market and you've seen the mineral prices, battleships are absolutely crazy right now. And it's because the minerals went up, and the ships are actually trading for less than the minerals are worth, at least in Amar for some of the ones that I've looked into. So I've made some ISK off of that. So that's EVE ISK per hour. It's another wonderful tool. There are a couple others, but these are the ones that I found to be the most useful. One thing I wanted to spend the most time on though is the in-game graph. So that's why I've kind of been sprinting through these other things. So I'm gonna pull it over to here. This is the best trade tool in EVE. In fact, I'm gonna get rid of these. This is the absolute best trade tool in EVE. I thought everyone was aware of this, but I actually found some people that didn't even know how to get here or what any of this was. So this is the in-game graph. If you look at any item in EVE, you're gonna notice a couple things here, but you're not going to get any dated metrics. In fact, the only thing that you can look at in this table that gives you any kind of price over time is by looking at the expires in. It's really limited. It doesn't let you know what something's worth. It doesn't let you know how competitive it is. If all you care about is going to a hub, buying something, and moving on, cool, you know, go here, buy something, that's it. If you're interested in making money off of it, not even as a station trader. Let's say you were someone who does PvP almost exclusively and you just wanted to dump a lot of assets. You know, you could still not make much money here. So you come here. This is where everything happens. Now there's a couple of things that we can gather from this. We can see the price over time. So we can see, I'm going to focus on actually just one metric. 20-day average. So this is the 20-day average for this item over the past year. This item sometimes goes up to about 180 ISK. Sometimes it goes down to about 105, it looks like, 105 ISK. So this is the 20-day moving average. You know, this is going to look very different in Jita versus Amar. So, you know, the way that you trade it is different. But let's say, I'm going to now show the 5-day average. We can now pair this up with the 5-day moving average, and we can see that, you know, they don't really line up perfectly. An enterprising trader could come in here and compare the two of these and still make profit by just looking at the rises and the falls. Donchian channel, another great metric that we can use. This shows us the 20-day, the 5-day moving average in terms of median price for buy and sell. And now we can add all these others. Now we can see the volume of items being traded. We can see the actual orders, the orange dots. These are the absolute values for the margin trades. And now I'm going to bring it over to my wiki sheet. Cool. Let's go to market fundamentals. So I showed you the graph. Now I'm going to break it down in detail. This is just my personal notes. You can't find this online anywhere. This is just an account I have with Confluence, so it's just personal stuff. But let's go through it. All right, so the Donchian channel is the lowest sell and the highest buy over the past 5 days. It's basically what you use for profits, right? So if you can buy at the bottom of this Donchian channel and you can sell at the top of it, that's basically your margin for profit. It doesn't tell you how many items are trading. You would have to look at the daily volume down here, but it can tell you, hey, look, if you were to put up a buy order and you were to just sit on it, not even update it, nothing, you just sit on the buy order. This person put one up for, it looks like 60, about 68 ISK. They filled it there, and then a week later, they were able to sell it for, 68 million. A week later, they were able to sell it for about 95 million. That's a week of doing nothing.
It might be because I'm on my phone and I can't really see the graph is all getting funky because of my phone. But how can you tell it's specifically one person that sold it?
So here, not quite yet. You would actually go to something like Adam for Eve, and let's say
when it would show the lister versus and when that item was sold.
Yeah, so what we would look at here is the average trades. You can't really see that in Eve super well. I mean, you kind of can. You can go to the show table under price history, and you can look at orders. And so the number of orders is going to show us, how many people on average. One person could have 10 orders, or you could have 10 people with one order. You can't figure that out, but it does give you an idea of how active the market is. So not just like a massive order, but just the number of people engaging in it, how hot it is. So when I said one person...
Sorry, Rain. The stream looks garbled for me as well, but if you stop watching the stream and then connect again, that might help the issue, Emery.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Oh, my bad, guys. I'm actually recording. I usually don't have that issue when it's just streaming, but since I'm recording as well, my computer might not be able to keep up. But yeah, I guess you can try that. You can leave and then come back to the stream and it might clear up. Otherwise, I'm going to post the recording later on. I'm going to clean it up and take out all my ums and uhs. So that might be a good watch. But anyways, so I don't know specifically this is one person, but I know that this could be you, right? This could be 10 people who really looked out. But looking from a trader's perspective, all you really have to care about is the amount of competition you have and the amount of volume the item has, right? So if the volume is significant enough that there might be 20 people competing with you, but the number of items traded daily is so extreme, it doesn't matter how much competition, your orders are still going to fill, right? So this could be one person, it could be 10 people, but more importantly, it could be you. And so looking at the Donchian channel is really great for being able to make day trades. So I kind of mentioned earlier, there are lots of different ways to trade. I'm specifically talking about day trading. I might cover the others at the end with a Q&A session if anyone has any questions. There are certainly other ways to make ISK, but I'm really only talking about day trading, putting up a buy order and then having it fulfilled and putting up the sell order. And so for something like that, that's where seeing this Donchian channel is extremely important. If I go back to the market details, the Donchian channel, by the way, is this spread, right? It's buying it for 90 ISK and selling it for 115. That's your margin, that's your spread, that's also your profit. All right, so I'm gonna go back to the table. So yeah, that's your Donchian channel. It's the 5-day moving average, also known as your profit. Super important to see. I'd be happy to take any questions any other time to understand it a little bit more. But just for now, boil it down to Donchian channel equals profit. Next, we're going to talk about buy versus sell orders. So in that, we're going to be looking specifically at the orange dots. If I pull it up here, oop, I went too far. These orange dots that you see in the endgame graph, these tell you the daily median price. In other words, if you try and interpret this, when the price is low, that means people are selling it. When the price is higher, people are buying it, driving the price up or driving the price down. So these orange dots give you an indication of how this item is consumed. We're going to get into this a little bit later on, but it's basically supply versus demand. Dots being at the bottom indicates a very low demand. Dots being at the top indicates an extremely high demand. So I put that in the bullet point here as well. Dots at the bottom of the channel are sell orders being fulfilled. That's at the top of the channel. Dots at the bottom of the channel are buy orders being fulfilled. That gets extremely important when we get to looking at good items to trade. We're not there yet. We're still talking about how to read the graph. Then we're going to take it and apply it. Next thing we want to look at is the 52-week average. So if we head back to the game and we look at the length of this, right? So we can shorten it down to a month, 6 months, 3 months, whatever, or the full year. I very much like to look at the full period of time that I can see in the graph because it gives me an idea of how healthy an item is. Now this isn't perhaps the best item to look at because it's super high volume. Let's maybe take a look at something else, like I don't know, maybe an ogre. This might be a little better. Yeah, this is fine. Okay, so the 52-week average is how we find out what this item is useful for, sells for over the entire year. As we can see throughout the entire year, it's actually usually a lot lower than the peak, which was only in March. Very recently, it sold for as much as 2.1 million ISK, right? And the lowest we've seen for a full daily average was just before that at 1.9 million. It's a million ISK profit each. And look, that was a single month spread. It rose by a million ISK. That's incredible. If you were the person making that trade, you could double your ISK basically. And if we look at how many orders there were, let's say on average 288 in a day at a million ISK profit on that margin per item, which means if you could be the only person trading there, that's 288 million ISK in that single day profit on this one item, and you can trade hundreds of items. Granted, you're going to have a lot of competition. Don't expect to corner the market that readily. I'm just saying that this spread is very important, especially for day trading. If I were wanting to buy an item, sit on it, and sell it, I wouldn't want to buy it at the yearly high. What if I don't liquidate my inventory? What if I'm stuck sitting on those items? I might have to wait another year, potentially, before I can sell it again. So I'm left with only two choices: either sell it at a loss, lower than I purchased it, or hold on to it for a year. I'm going to give you an example of something that really bit me. If I go to my inventory, and I'm going to go to waiting to sell. Yeah, here's an example. These Genolution Core Augmentation CA1s, I've got 10 of them. Granted, I made a couple billion ISK trading this item, so even if I were to make no profit off of this, pure loss, I'm still really well ahead. But point is, I'm sitting on a billion ISK worth of these, and I picked them up for, I think, 200 million over a year ago, before I quit the game last time. That's kind of why I'm stuck with the inventory. They're currently trading at 100 million. So straight 50% of what they used to be. So don't buy at the high is, I guess, the lesson I'm trying to get there. Don't buy at the high. You have to understand the 52-week average, and it tells you how much risk you're taking on. Let's go back to here. 52-week low, also incredibly important. If you can identify when you're getting close to an item's year-long low, it doesn't matter how good of a trader you are or how active you are. If you buy those items at that price, you're almost guaranteed profit, assuming nothing in EVE changes. Minerals can change, wars can change, but assuming none of that changes, if you just happen to be lucky enough to fulfill your order at a 52-week low, you're guaranteed free ISK. Depending on how much you're willing to put into it, and if you're willing to sit on it and wait for it, it's free ISK. Very low effort. Median and mean, also really great. Oh yeah, so back to the low. Buying it and holding on to it isn't day trading, it's speculating. So if you were to pick it up there, you'd be speculating, which is a different form of trade than day trading. Median is really good for finding out the health of an item. And the mean is really great for speculation and arbitrage. So the mean would be the average price the item trades for, not the middle point between the high and the low, but most of the items that traded for that item, where did they trade, right? Where's the volume and the price at that volume? And if you can buy it lower than that, you can almost certainly expect it to return to there and you can make a profit. If you buy it over that, you know, depending on the market, you might still make a profit, but it's going to be a lot more difficult. Okay, so market trends. Now we're getting into a little bit more advanced understanding of the graph. So now we're going to be talking about a bull market and a bear market. I'm going to try and stay away from these terms a little bit because, you know, we're starting to get into really like stock market kind of stuff. But basically, upward trend, when we look at this graph, upward trend is just when an item is actually increasing in price, and you do have some dips or rallies in the trend, but it's still overall going one way or the other. If you can see this happening and you have a bit of in-game knowledge for why this is happening, crazy profit potential here as well. So in this case, if we were to have buy orders set on, this is an augmented ogre. Probably shouldn't be showing you this item. I make a ton of ISK off of it very consistently. But if you were to be able to purchase it at under 25 million ISK and you sat on it, right? You could put up a sell order right away, and you know your sell order might be for 27 or 28 million. You know, that's fantastic. You're making a couple million profit each. Trade 10 of those, 20 of those a day. It's not bad. That's like doing a C3 site AFK. It's really not bad at all. But if you were to sit on it, in this case 1 month, if you were to sit on it, it peaked at 40 million. This was the bull market that went straight up to 40 million because this item was in high demand. And we can see that going back to the orange dots for the daily median price, people were actually buying it up here. This wasn't just a straight manipulation, this was real demand with a lack of supply. So if you can predict this kind of movement in the market, really great ISK here as well. There are pullbacks on the rise, so we can see that as the market was going up, it kind of pulled back. Why does this happen? This doesn't happen due to a lack of demand, right? The bull market, the upward trend, is the demand. The demand is consistent. What this is people that might have an inventory of 100, 200, 300 of this item, and they dump their stock because they're like, oh, the price is going up, let me make some money. You know, maybe they bought it at 25 million, maybe they bought it at less, so they might put a huge volume up, more than is normal, and they bring the price down. That's the dip. But the demand is consistent. If you understand the demand of the item, and this is really key, if you understand the demand of the item, you can see that that's just a pullback and the market is still bullish. It's still going up. Same thing on a downward trend, you can actually make ISK here. I don't recommend it because you can be caught holding on to an asset that is very rapidly depreciating in value. But if the item trades in high inventory, right, in high margin, not something that trades 5 or 10 per day, you might not sell a single item as people are also trying to unload inventory and they're going to be outpricing you trying to sell faster. But if the item has a lot of volume trading and, you know, it's falling over the course of a month or two, right? We're not talking daily price, we're talking trend. Even though it's still going down, you can still make a profit by looking at the rallies. Now, would I recommend trying to trade here? No. I personally don't try and trade at all unless I see that I'm in the middle of an upward trend or I'm near the bottom of my 52-week average. That's a really great time to buy in. So why is the market dipping like this? Well, it could be because demand has outpaced supply. Supply could be tapering off. There are a multitude of reasons, but ultimately, study the 52 weeks, study the short market, determine if this is where you want to trade, and go from there. I put some notes in here, especially so just the bullet points on an upward trend. You can liquidate your inventory, or if you feel like the trend is going even better, let's say that this peak we see on this like 3-4 month trend or segment, let's say this is actually still below the 52-week average, which is like way up here. So if you see it trending upwards and you see this is below the 52-week average, maybe you don't sell in the dip. Maybe you don't sell at all. You can kind of see where this is going to go at the end, and you're willing to sit on your product for 3, 4, 6 months, and you make double your risk that way. So liquidate your inventory. That's the time. This doesn't happen very frequently. If you're doing long-term trades, you might sit on things for a very long time, but then when you do sell, you make bank. So I usually advise to sell at like 80% of the predicted peak. Try and guess roughly where it's going to be at the peak. Pull 20% off that, that's where you sell, because it might not make it all the way there, or the competition might be so fierce you just can't get inventory to move. So sell at 80% what you think the peak is going to be. I also recommend buying in the dip, even in a rally. So if you see this upward trend and you see that the dip is pulling back down, but you don't think it's done, you can still buy here. Yeah, sure, the market could change. You could lose a little bit of risk. You're probably going to do just barely worse than breaking even, but the potential is to make a lot more if you think the market is still going up. So I would even recommend buying in a pullback on the upward trend. Downward trend, don't panic. If you're accounting for volatility, we can see that even as it's falling, there are peaks. You can still offload inventory here. It's not the end of the world. It's just normal daily activity while trading. It happens all the time. And then sometimes neither. So this is a really great thing I wanted to bring up. The sometimes neither is actually super key, and it's where I make most of my ISK. So I talk about all the potential for reading the market, doing speculation, 52-week averages, all of that. At this point, you can throw that all out the window. Cyclical markets are really incredible. They're markets that have consistent supply, consistent demand. People always are farming it, people are always using it, and it's just going to have a normal daily peak. Let me see if I can go find something real quick. I'm going to touch on the sometimes neither cyclical markets again, just to kind of refresh where we were interrupted, because I have a screenshot now. Alright, so I mentioned cyclical markets are not super high ISK in terms of you're not going to go crazy on the profits for a single item. You're not going to double or triple your ISK. But if we take a look at this, we can see that here's a cyclical market. This is an insignia, and I pulled this one from Jita instead of Amar. So we can see that this item dips down to about 1.25 million, and it spikes to 1.35 up to 1.45. And it does this on like a month-to-month basis. You're almost guaranteed ISK if you get into this that you're going to be able to get out. One of the great things about this market as well is if we look at the volume, we're looking at 5,000 units traded at a million ISK, and this is like per day. So we're looking up to 5 billion ISK of volume on this item per day. Not many people can come in here and manipulate this market away from you, because that's always a risk, right? You get into a market, you're buying it, you're trading it, you're selling it, and then someone comes in and they just obliterate the market. They dump so much money, they inflate the prices, they force you out. There's nothing you can do. And so a market like this, where there's a lot of ISK traded per day, it's a little bit safer because it's not as easy to manipulate. It's not just going to run away. But you are still going to be able to make your profit. So if you're just on a month-to-month basis, now this isn't putting up a buy order and then a sell order on the same item at the same time. This is buying, holding it, selling it 2 weeks later, or 3 to 4 weeks later, right? So this is where I would say the bread and butter of all trading happens. Not on this specific item, because you can also look at the orders and see that there's a crazy amount of competition on this, right? So this may be a good item, this may not. This was selected kind of at random. There are certainly much better items, but it's still a good idea of consistent ISK by trading. If you're dealing with, we're looking at up to 5 billion per day, but usually around 2.5 billion ISK per day. You can pretty consistently, if you've got like 1 billion or 2 billion ISK, making its revolutions in this market, you're going to pretty consistently turn a profit. And so you get, 10, 20 items like this going. It's not a get rich quick. It's not a suddenly you're a trillionaire overnight. But if you're doing trading on a consistent basis over 6 months, yeah, you'll definitely pull billions of ISK out of this market. It's not super high intensity. So when I talked earlier about the way that I like to trade being, once a day I go update orders, this is what I look for. Some other items you might spend hours and hours researching. You'll find the absolute perfect item. You're going to make mind-boggling amounts of ISK, but you also put a lot of time into it. And for me, that's not a trade-off I want to make. I prefer to be logged in on my main. I prefer to be in the wormhole, flying, shooting things. And so this allows me to do that. I find cyclical items, I monitor them, sure, but they don't take a lot of research, and I just slowly pull off profits, right? Because if I'm trading this item, the profits on this one item might give me enough ISK to buy 2 Drex a month or something, right? So that's 2 great PvP ships that I don't have to rat to just fight with. I can just go get them back. And I put the same thing in here in my notes. I really like cyclical items. They're just casual, easy ISK. Really great. It's worth noting this isn't the best method for newer players. So that's another thing we need to talk about is I've been trading for a couple years in the markets. There might be some things in the market that I look at a graph and I pull a lot more information out of it at a glance than someone who's new to the market might pull after deep study. And that's just an experience thing. So being able to recognize these, paying attention to the pattern, being able to see where and when to buy in or buy out. I mean, on this one, it's pretty easy, but as I showed earlier, it's not always this obvious. So this is really great for the more experienced players. The newer players, it sounds crazy because there's so many more terms here, but this market is a lot easier actually to trade in because we can see the daily spread, right? Here, we're not talking about buying 1 month and selling the next month. That requires a lot of upkeep, right? You might have to check on these prices very frequently. You might have to remember what the price was last time. You might even need a spreadsheet or a document where you're tracking this. There's a little more overhead to do the month-to-month trading, or certainly the year-to-year trading, or the speculation that you might sit on for 6 months. If you look at an item that has a really big daily spread, this is certainly an item. And I can show you on this character if I go to some of my orders. Let's find, I don't know, what's something I'm buying and selling? Excavator mining drones, I guess? So if we look at the spread on this, the spread, the daily spread, this isn't predicting, this isn't speculation, this is absolutely nothing. You can almost ignore this entire graph. It's important to understand it because it's going to be how you prevent yourself from getting really burned. Go ahead and clean this up a little bit. I mean, that's good, I guess. Let's take out the median daily price. So on this one, if we look at the year-long graph, sure, it changes, but it's not wild. The wildest changes are the day-to-day, right? You can buy this, and then you can turn around and sell it. I'll go ahead and put the median back. So you can see that if you're really lucky, you could have picked this up for 200 million. The very next day, you could have sold it in the middle of your Donchian channel, not the top, in the middle, you could have turned around and sold it for 100 million profit. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. I have this up here, it's sitting, I just purchased 2 of these at 176, so I only have 2 left to buy. And I sold 2 of these for, I think, 350 million. So I made, after taxes, after fees, I made 150 million-esque profit on each one of these drones, right? I made 300 million profit for something that I don't touch maybe once a month. It's a lot lower effort because it doesn't need me to be looking at the graph. I just need to make sure that my order is there. Given enough time, I'm going to make profit. So going back to here, that's not a cyclical. That's just a casual day trade based on very wild margins. So this is fundamentals of the market graph for reading it, understanding it, and finding opportunities. Now I want to actually show you all the process of finding an item to trade start to finish. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go back over to Adam for Eve, this tool I showed you earlier, and I'm going to turn dark mode off. I prefer the wider screen. I don't know about you. I just got used to it this way. So category. Anyone have a suggestion for a category? I can pick one, or we can find an item in whatever category you come up with.
Modules.
Cool. Modules it is. Module. There we go. Now I am trading in Amar, so I'm going to actually set this to not Amar, the station like I did earlier. I'm going to set this to domain, the region. The reason why, and I'll show you here, if we look at this item, this drone for example, we can see that most people are selling in the trade hub where they're going to be maximizing the number of people that they reach on their trade, but they're actually purchasing it in the Tranquility Trade and Prod Center. The margin, or sorry, the tax here is a lot better. Instead of paying a 3.5% with perfect skills broker fee, they only have to pay a 1% fee to the player-owned station. Now, granted, you are funding nullsec blocks, and you may or may not like the people that you're funding, but if you don't care about that and all you care about is your fee, your margin, you would buy it here and you would set your range to 1 jump and then you would sell it here. So because of that, when I'm over here in Adam for Eve, I can't just search for the Amar station because I want to find buy orders. And as you saw, almost everyone buys out of this player station. So I have to set it to the region. So that's what I do here. I set it to domain. Now I want to go for something that has at least, we can adjust this, of course, to dial it in, but let's say at least minimum trades of 25. Buy broker's fee, we can play with this to get it closer. This is where your standings and your skills are going to really matter. But let's just say we want to find something that has 200 million ISK traded and 25 trades. So let's go ahead and set our filter. And now let's go ahead and start dialing these in. Let's look for something with a great spread. So we're looking at markets that move at least 200 million ISK of this product per day. At least 25 items are traded per day, right? So we don't want something that's super low volume. We want a decent amount of volume. Otherwise, you know, there might be competition that prevents you from having your orders filled. So that's what we're doing here. Now we're going to go ahead and start dialing this in. We're going to look at the spread in terms of ISK. We're going to look at the spread in terms of percentage. This is your margin. When I mentioned earlier skills, how you can, you know, cut off 0.5% by having perfect trading skills versus not perfect trading skills. What does that matter when the margin is 127%, right? Skills don't matter when you trade such a high margin item. We can look at the buy price. This item is being purchased for 588,000 ISK, and the sell price of 1.4 million ISK. Average trades, there are 47 trades per day. It's an almost 500 million ISK market. The 7-day buy is currently down 10%. So that's kind of unfortunate. That means that the buys are down probably because the price is not where people want it. Sell is also down, so this is not a great market. It's a great margin, but it's not a great market. You might not actually move the product you accumulate. 7-day buy volume is currently down at 35.9. This is down, and the sell is also there. So we can get richer details by going to the station view instead of the region view, but we're going to find an item first, and then we narrow it down. So let's keep looking. So 1600 millimeter steel plate 2. Spread is 2.6 million ISK. This is absolutely insane. Buy price at 3.6 million, sell price at 6.4. 62 traded per day, not bad. It's a 500 million ISK market. You know, the 7-day buy is down. This is actually great. So this is the buy price. That is down. That means that the market has crashed. We can take a look at it here and look at the graph. And if we wait for this to load, there we go. So now we have really rich metrics that we don't really get in Eve. This is something you only get on Atom 4 Eve, or maybe another tool or your own spreadsheet if you set it up that way. So we can see that the price has gone up over the past year. This might be due to minerals. In fact, we could go over here and we could take this and, you know, find out what it's costing to build this, and that would help us narrow it down. I'm not going to do that just because I'm trying to keep this lesson kind of short, but we could find out why the price is going up. Next, we can find out order item quantity. We can see the sell volume. These are sell orders, and the buy volume. These are people selling to buy orders. We can also see the traded volume. Now we see at the bottom, this part is also really great. We're going to see the buy volume is relatively small actually, and the sell volume is huge. So these are sell orders, and we can see how deep this market runs. We're at 8.5 million ISK, and there are 300 items at 8.9 million or 8.5 million ISK. This is a very rich market. That means there's a lot of assets tied up here. It might be fine, it might not. Point is, this item seems kind of okay. Now, I wouldn't start trading it until I actually do find out what it's costing to produce, because I don't want to buy a bunch only to see someone come in, manufacture a ton, and crash the market. But let's go ahead and take a look at this item in game. And this is not something I pulled out beforehand, by the way. This is something we're just looking at right now. So we can see that the number of orders, wow, 89 days, 89, 89, 29. These are the number of people that just put up a fresh buy order. So the competition is fierce. Probably a lot of other people saw this opportunity and they're wanting to get in on it. As for sell, none of these are really recent. I would almost think someone purchased a ton. So we see that the price is going up. And if we go back to our understanding of reading the market graph, the spread of the orange dots, the median price, is actually pretty stable, but we see that the 5-day moving average is going down. This item might be crashing. One thing we could do is we could take a look at this item in JITA and see what's going on there. This might be a local thing to this region. It might be a thing across all of Eve. Point is, this is not an item I want to trade, not due to anything else, but just because of this. I'm not going to be able to buy anything. Orders are going to fill up from other people just constantly cutting me out. Okay, let's look at Republic Fleet Small Cap Battery. This is an incredible margin. 35 traded per day, 375 million ISK per day. The price has just fell out from underneath it. Unfortunately, I don't like the numbers we're seeing over here as much. So let's keep looking. Medium Nosferatu, same deal. But again, I only go to T2 items, which it looks like everything here is. I really only like trading in T2 items when I understand what it costs to manufacture. And I want to make sure that no one's just going to produce a bunch and undercut me to a degree at which I can no longer compete. Now, this is certainly something I would happily trade off stream because I don't want to spend the amount of time it takes to research. So we're going to find something that doesn't require as much research to trade. But I will say, if you can purchase these at lower than they cost to produce, you're almost guaranteed ISK. These are actually pretty darn good. Just do your research. So we're going to keep going a little bit, and we're down to 23% margin. Still fine. One metric I would give you to keep in mind when scoping things out to trade is 10%. If you look at your purchase price, the taxes you pay on it, if you look at your sell price, the taxes you pay on it, if you have to update any orders, the taxes you pay on those, I wouldn't even consider anything with a lower than 10% margin, or you're guaranteed to not make a ton of ISK unless the volume is absolutely insane. I wouldn't touch it. And when you're outside of JITA, you don't really see that volume to make up that difference. So I just don't like going under 10. It looks like we're getting kind of close. If I saw a really great item down here, I might snap it up. This one's actually not bad. So it's Meta 4, it's farmed, not built, I don't think. Imperial Navy Multi-Spectrum, also not bad. In fact, this is looking pretty healthy. Only 32 traded per day. Not ideal, but really not bad. I do like the spread on this Meta 4 item. The FS9 shield and the multi-spectrum. So let's take a look at both of these. And while we're doing that, I've kind of capped out or gone through the entire module market. So let's maybe take a look at drones next. We'll set our filter for that. Okay, so this is an Imperial Navy multi-spectrum energized membrane. We see that the buy and sell price is pretty on par with each other. There's consistently a margin. The gap between this red and green line, that's going to be your profit, and it looks pretty consistent. That's not bad. If we look at the volume of sales and purchases, we see that this also isn't a bad spread. We see that the sell volume is much higher than the buy volume. So what does this tell me? This tells me that it's going to be hard to buy these, right? If I put up buy orders, I might not have people funding or funneling a lot to me. My buy orders might not fulfill. But it also means once my buy order does fulfill, there's a pretty good chance I'm going to be able to offload it. We're going to have to look at the market graph and game to be able to find out if it's a good time to buy it. But at least for now, this looks like a pretty okay AFK-ish trade. So we'll take a look at that. The shield extender margin is really narrow, and it seems to have just spiked right here. To me, this absolutely screams market manipulation, so I am out. Imperial Navy multi-spectrum energized membrane. Let's take a look at that. It's buying for 27, selling for 34. That's exactly what we saw in here. It looks like it's been trending downwards over the past year, so that's fine. That means either LP has crashed in general, and we could do research on that to find if LP has crashed in general, or it means that demand has fallen off. For whatever reason, we can still make money in this market. One of the beauties about day trading, or station trading, another name for it, is you don't really need to understand this entire market. Unless my trade goes painfully wrong, I'm not going to be sitting on this commodity for long enough for this market to really pull away from me, right? This is just going to be very easy ISK to make. I'm going to sit on it for maybe a week at the most. Well, a week on average, 2 at the most. Ideally, I would be flipping it within a couple days. So let's narrow this down. So the year-long view isn't terrible. Let's take a look at, just the past few months. And we see that our Danshian channel tells us it goes down as low as 27.5, as high as 35, and it's pretty consistent in this range. That's actually pretty great. That means that we're going to very easily be able to make some money because people are selling it, people are buying it, it's relatively stable so far, and even if the worst happens and this market really pulls away from us, we're kind of at the bottom of the year-long peak. It's not super likely that this is going to drop any lower than this. I mean, in the past 12 months, it hasn't gone lower than where it is right now. So this actually looks pretty okay. If we look at the number of orders, okay, someone updated this order yesterday. and then 2 today. So there's only 3 people buying these at the moment. And we look at sales, and there's only 2 people selling at the moment. This isn't bad. It's not going to be high ISK. I'm probably going to make, if I average it out, maybe 20 million in a month off of this item. So it's not going to be, game changing. But you get 10 items like this, 20 million each. There's a couple 100 million ISK per month. You get some other items that are higher players. It's really not bad. In fact, it's so not bad. I'm going to go ahead and put up an order for a couple. So let's talk about this. If you see what I did here, you have a button down here where you can place a buy order. And you can do that, but I want to point out, if you do that, it's going to default to buying it in this station. If you right click one of the orders, and let's say I do it in this station again, it also defaults to this station. But if I right click on an order in another hub and I hit place buy order, first off, it price matches and it changes the location to be identical. Now I can just mouse wheel up and I increase the price, so I'm guaranteed to be at the top. Quantity, I want to do 2, and it's set for 3 months, a range of 1 jump, and a minimum of 1 item. The reason I'm not doing more is, actually I am. I'll do 4 more. Just because some people will sell in bulk, so I would like to snap those up. But more importantly, I don't want to do a ton because my fee to change orders is kind of very high. This is one of the market changes from the old days to the new. So 27.3 million each, 4 items. At the volume this trades at, I wouldn't expect this to fill immediately, but certainly over the next week or so. So, boom. That easy. It did take money out of my wallet, but the margin is decent enough that I'm expecting to make some profit off of this. So that is finding a good item to trade using Atom for Eve. Really great tool. You can use this for a lot more. I use this to find market manipulation opportunities as well. So it's better, or it's really good for a lot more than just station trading. You can use this to do arbitrage, market arbitrage between systems. You can use this to do day trading, market manipulation. It's really wonderful to find items that you can manufacture and sell. A lot of wonderful uses for this tool. So that is identifying a good item. Let's see if I can go back. Realistic expectations for profits. So this is kind of important to get into. While you could get very rich doing this, this isn't the way that you become wealthy in EVE, right? Station trading, putting up buy orders, putting up sell orders, only trading day to day, you're guaranteed to make some profit, right? You might lose out on your first couple transactions. You might mistime the market. Your orders might not fill. You might try going to update your orders all the time, and hey, cool, your order filled, you bought things, and then your order emptied, you sold things, but you updated it 10 times in the process, and so all of your profit got eaten up by taxes. You might even lose money. So you have to be able to understand how much you're actually spending on that, outside of just buying and selling. So while you can make money doing this, and it is pretty consistent, it's not going to make you an overnight trillionaire in EVE. It will certainly amass profit, and the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. It's one of the reasons I love trading, honestly. When it comes to ratting in a wormhole, it doesn't matter if I'm ratting in a C3 and I have perfect skills, perfect ship. I'm ratting in a marauder, and I'm just clearing the sites as fast as possible. I'm making 250 million ISK an hour. I could make that same 250 million ISK an hour with an Ishtar. So there's only so much profit you can make there despite how much money you put into it. When it comes to trading, if I put in 500 million ISK, I'm going to make so much profit. If I put in 50 billion ISK, it might be the same linear increase in terms of percentage for what I'm making on my trades, but because it pairs very nicely with the amount that you're trading, your actual profits go way higher, right? 10% profit off of 50 billion is pretty good money compared to 50% on 500 million. So it just really snowballs over time. That's wonderful. I love it. The more you put in, the more you get out. But it's not going to make you really rich overnight. To do things like that, you need to do speculation. You need to do market manipulations. You need to do something like arbitrage. The reason I don't do a lot of these things is just because of the time. In fact, you would make way more ISK doing industry, producing things. I would actually love for another corp mate to come in and do a lesson on that. That'd be cool. But even industry can make a lot more than station trading like this. But none of that is easier in the more brain dead, right? I put in 30 minutes into this every morning. I log in, I check my market orders, I update my purchases, I take a quick 5-second look at the graph. I don't update sell orders. If I have to update my sell order, that means I didn't read the market right, or it means that I'm being really impatient. The more patient you can be with it, you saw all those variations in the graph, how the prices swung up and down. Even if your order doesn't sell today, unless you like desperately need that money this second, if you can sit on it for a week or two, you know, the market will swing and your order will sell again. If you're patient with it, you don't really need to update your sales. They just come through when the market is ready for it. So 30 minutes every morning, that's it. And it easily nets me 500 million to $1 billion pretty easily. If I go take a look at my wallet, for example, and I look at, I've only been trading since the 9th, so 8 days. I've only been trading on this character for 8 days since coming back to Eve, and I have already spent 7 billion and earned 10 billion. And if I go look at my expenses, well, you can see that 2.5 billion of that was me transferring ISK over to one of my other characters. So 30 minutes in the morning, working with about 20 billion ISK. This gives you an idea of what a perfect trade can do. I had some lucky breaks in here, some items that normally wouldn't sell for the profit that I made, I got really lucky. So don't expect this. This is absolute best case scenario after being very experienced with it. This is about what you can make. So that's really not bad. Industry can make more than this. Ratting in a C5 can make more than this. It's just not as easy. So that kind of covers expectations for profits and also time. Don't put a lot of time into it or you're gonna burn out. I used to station trade back when I was in school, and I would put in like 4 to 6 hours into this. I was constantly updating my orders, constantly researching the market, constantly getting involved over and over and over. And yes, my profits were kind of insane, to be honest. Really wonderful. I also burnt out and quit the game. So don't put too much into it. Treat it as AFK and you'll be successful. You'll also learn a lot more over time. So I highly recommend that. And that's pretty much it. This character that makes me so much income without having to do anything, she has been, can I pull up my actual, can I just show info on me? Here we go. This character has never joined a corporation. AFK corporation, never undocked, sitting in my original magnate for 10 years and 8 months, and she makes all this money station trading. When I do have items that fill outside in other systems, I just contract it out to have someone else move it for me. So that's kind of it for all the active instructions on trade. There is so much more. Each one of these categories I briefly talked about, I could go on in great depth in a one-on-one or something. But this is like the lightest overview I think I could really give that touched all the different categories. So any questions or anyone want a specific example of anything, a deep dive, anything like that?
Well, thanks for your time and the presentation. If you have any links you have found useful, like resources for further learning, you could link them in event planning or learning. What's the name of the channel? Learning Room.
Yeah, for sure. I'll link the items I have and like the third-party tools and some other people that I highly recommend. Off the top of my head, one of the best people I can recommend for this is the Oz. He does Twitch streams, he has a Discord server, a bunch of YouTube videos. I've been trading for a long time and through many variations in the market, and I would say after all of that, I still learned some new things from him. He's really, really good at what he does. I highly recommend you check out his content.
Are there any particular tips you've got for just like offloading garbage? Well, you know,
Yes.
like the is there a good, better ways of doing it than just occasionally I just get bored and go, just fuck it, sell everything. It's probably really bad.
No, totally. That is absolutely valid. Understanding the market is really great for more than just trying to do normal station trading. When I bring loot out of PvP, if I do missions for a really long time, which fortunately I haven't done in like 8 years, but when I just accumulate assets and I want to offload and, you know, make the most of my ISK, I don't come in here and sell to buy orders. It's quick, but you're really leaving a lot of ISK on the table. By selling it to other people, you're allowing them to make all the profit instead of yourself. You can still capture all of that. So what you could do is you can come in here and you can place a sell order, or, and this is what I would recommend. This is like the 5-second, like, here's how to make the most. If you need that profit right away, you only have 2 options. You sell to buy orders, or you put up your own sell order, just at whatever the current price is, right? You come in here, you see, oh, it's selling for 34 million. Let me sell mine for 33.9 million.
Yeah,
that's if you need the
usually what I
money
end up
right
doing.
away. One thing you can do is if you take a look at this graph, on whatever it is that you're selling, you take a look at the graph, right? You look at your 52-week average. We see it went up to 60 and down to 30. Cool. It's currently at the low. If I want this ISK in the next week or month or whatever, I don't really have an option. I'm not going to expect it to go up there. But if you have the patience for it, hey, you might make twice as much. And if you have this going all throughout EVE, and you're always able to do something like this, always have the patience for it, never in a rush to get the ISK, I mean, look at how much more money you could make. Twice as much, just with patience. I don't necessarily recommend that, because when you are accumulating things, the sheer number of things you're accumulating means you can't just study the market and always sell at the perfect time. It's unrealistic. What I would do is I would come in here and I would look at, let's say, the past 3-ish months. And we can see that in the past 3 months, this item, it kind of fluctuates. We see that it's always selling at 35. If I were you and I came in here wanting to sell this, and I didn't have the patience to wait more than 3 months, I see that the current high is kind of where it's been. I would just put up the sell order right then. But let's say it's something else. Let me see if I
I
have
guess even
something.
this one, if it was like a week ago or something, when it was actually at the bottom of that trough, then yeah, you could easily see like waiting a week or 2 and then selling might be worthwhile. Like,
Well, not even that, right? So that's actually one of the things I wanted to cover. So this item, I should liquidate. 69 million is
yeah,
pretty
huge.
good. I should liquidate this item. Okay, but what I wanted to show you is if you see this, same deal, just sell, right? So this is why understanding the market is super critical. Let's take a look at something that's maybe not doing super great right now. Oh, this one's also pretty okay. So as you see, a lot of these you really would do well just selling it off. That's my active trade. Let's go to the buying. Okay, these are items that I'm just buying no matter what, because I expect to be able to flip profit off them in like 6 months or something. So this one is currently down. Let's say this is what you're looking at. You have a lot of melted nano ribbons and you want to sell them, but you don't want to sell them right now at a dip, right? Yes, you could wait to sell, But remember, when you sell an item, you automatically get 90 days to sell that item after putting the order up. If we see this, we see that at no point in time has this item been as low as it is for more than 90 days. It's just not happened. So what we could do is, even though the market is here at 40 to 50,000, well, it's actually a little higher because we're looking at the Donchian, but we can see that recently it's been around here. We've even seen it up here. Same thing for some other items. We see that it's currently at a dip, but we see it rising, right? We expect it to be here. We can today put up a sell order for this at 55 million ISK, and we have a reasonable expectation that we're going to have our sell order fulfill without having to touch the order. We might put it up today for 90 days, and it's not touched for 70 days. But then the market bounces and we sell. Look, we're down at 37, 38, 39 million. We're about here, so it's recovering. But we could have purchased down here for 21 million, and I did. I've actually flipped a ton of these. But so that's what you can do. You can just put your order ahead of time and not have to worry about it. Eventually it will sell. And a lot of manufacturers and industrialists probably have better advice on this, but this is generally, from my experience, how they sell as well. They don't just make something and then put it on the market where it currently is. They will make something and put it on the market where they expect to sell it, no matter what the current price is today. If they expect it to sell for this, they will list it for this right now. And, you know, the market flips, price goes back up, we see the swing, and they sell it. If we take a look at these C-types, same deal here. We talked about reasonable expectations. We see that this item has a long cycle, right? It over a period of time, it does the same thing. So we could list this for 230 million, and we have a reasonable expectation for it to sell there. Where is it at? 204. So, you know, I can expect to sell this. I could take this right now and list it on the market for 230 million, and I would expect to make that money. So just don't list for what you see it on the market today. It's as simple as that. The market swings. What you see is not always what you get.
That makes sense. I'm always like, I almost always try to put sell orders for stuff up, but I'll put sell orders at what the top current, essentially what the current sell order is, rather than looking to the future.
You totally can, but I would say that's kind of risky. Let me show you why. If you don't look at the market for the year, there's a really good chance when you go to list an item, you're listing it for the current year high. Remember we talked about that 52-week average and stuff? If you list it here and you don't offload your product and then the market goes back down, look, over the next 6 months, it never comes back. You never sell it.
Yes, I did get... a couple of years ago I did buy like 50 tier 2 10MN afterburners because I was like, hey, this is a really good deal, and then ended up just sitting on them until I used them because actually the market went down forevermore.
Yeah, basically exactly that. So if all you're doing is you have something and you're like, oh, I don't want to sell it for 175, I want to sell it for 200, and you put your order there. Whoa, it never fills. Pure loss. And you paid the taxes to list it, so you even lose that. So even if you are just wanting to put up a sell order, I would always recommend look at this graph. Please look at this graph. This is the best information you can get. And one thing that I do, I have this character here in Amar. I have another alt that I trade in Jita with, and I have another that she's been unsubbed for many years, but I used to have an alt in each trade hub where I would, when I was going to sell an item, I would look at that item's price in other popular regions. I don't really have to do that today because there are tools like Atom for Eve, Eve Marketeer, a ton of others where you can find out the price without having to physically be there. But point is, just find out what the price is in the other region as well. Get an idea for the health of the item. And look, let's say we were here. And... let's say we were here. On this day in September, we listed for 340 million ISK. If we didn't pay attention to our sell orders, we might have gone through the next 2 months almost, and we were constantly undercut by other people, we never sold off, and now we're left with it. And so now if we wanted to sell after that, we would be stuck selling for 270, right? So taking 100 million ISK loss there. But what if we didn't list for this? What if we listed for this? Over the next 2 months, we still sold it, and yes, the market crashed, but by being a little less greedy and by understanding the market, we knew that we were at a bubble. And so we were slightly less greedy, but being less greedy still makes 30 or 310 million versus 280, 207. So we're still making a 40 million huge margin profit by not waiting for the market to fall away from us, by being slightly less greedy and understanding the trend of the item. That's a lot better than today. I mean, look, we're talking 310, 320, when today it's 204. This wouldn't happen to you if you paid attention to the market. There's a reason I'm buying these. I have a couple of these in my current container, and I have a couple more in other trade hubs. I have a mass inventory bank alt that I use that I have more. I have a ton of these because I expect the market to come back for me. So that's why understanding the market, even if you're just selling off things that you mine or harvest, I think the real benefit there is just have patience. If you really need the ISK now, there's nothing you can do. But if you have patience and you can sit and wait, you can make a lot more ISK off of the exact same amount of items.
Yeah, I do have an awful lot of shit. And I never get around to selling it. So that's pretty good, actually. I ought to pay attention to what this stuff is.
Yep. Another example, I don't know if it was you or someone else, but someone had, I think their example was ore or minerals. And so they didn't want to sell to buy orders, and they didn't want to put out a sell order, get undercut, and no longer make their money. And so one thing that they asked me was, what can I do to sell it? Because what they were doing is they were putting it in between the sell and the buy. And that's not necessarily, I'm covering it now because, there's a recording. I hope they see it. But putting it in between might not necessarily be the answer. And the reason is someone might see your item at a, splitting the difference. But if it's already a super massive margin, let's go back to this. I like extremes because they allow you to take that information and apply it to less extreme situations. So excavator mining drone. Currently buying for 183, and here at least selling for 304. Some people came in here and they wanted to sell for 270. Look, those have been up for a couple days and they haven't sold yet. Splitting the difference doesn't necessarily mean you're going to sell. Understanding the market is how you sell.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Definitely worth paying attention. Have you got sort of, I guess the other question on that front is, for just like random items, is there a good way of telling like what stuff is worthwhile actually looking at and what stuff you just like, oh fuck, I'm just gonna sell it to buy orders?
Yeah, totally. There's lots of factors to consider. The primary factor I always consider, even above profits, is the one commodity I can't buy more of, and that's my own free time. If the ISK isn't really worth it, even if I'm only making 50%, if it's 50% of like a 10 million ISK or a 1 million ISK stack of items or a whole inventory, my time is more valuable than that. Even if I'm losing money, if it's not worth my time, I just sell it to a buy order and I move on. So I always consider my own time. Remember, for each item I did here, I had to look at the market. For some items like T2, I might go over to eVisc per hour and find out what the price is to manufacture. I might check other hubs. I might, actually start breaking out some of the more stock trading principles, like studying the rallies, the dips, the pullbacks, maybe even break out like candle graphs and all that. If something isn't worth my time to do all of that, I just sell it to a buy order. Even at a loss, I take that money and I do profitable transactions to recoup it and move on. So time, always time. Most important thing ever is time. You can't buy more of it.
Yeah, I guess if you just get a random like 50 million from selling to a buy order, and then you can make 10% on, use that 50 million to make 10% somewhere else, then it's worthwhile. Like, it's easy.
Exactly. And one thing I didn't cover before this is another thing on time, and I did this very intentionally. If I go look at my market transactions, I'm going to expand this a little bit. I haven't touched my trades on this character in a few days. I think for like the past 4 days, I haven't touched this character's market orders, just because I wanted to show what happens by not even bothering to adjust prices. And that's this. I haven't touched my prices since... let's look for broker fees. Okay, so like the 12th.
Like at the top now, yeah.
So basically the 12th is the last time I even touched anything on this character. And yet I'm still having things sell. Things that the market pulled away from and then they recovered. These are items that I don't touch at all, but the market rallies where I expect it to rally because I've studied the graph and I understand the swing. And so the price came to where I want it and I liquidated without touching it at all. In each one of these transactions, I'm making probably 30 to 50% margin. So this item, 358 million, I probably purchased that for... I actually purchased for a lot less. These people have put up new orders. I probably purchased this for around 250 million. So that's 150 million profit, or 100 million profit on that. So each one of these, I'm making a really good margin without even touching it. And this is what I'm talking about with time as a commodity. You don't need to spend your time updating orders.
Well, like you're also saying, it's an easy way to lose money by just continuing paying taxes.
Yes, absolutely. So one thing I do is I don't update sell orders, except maybe once a week. And sometimes, quite often, I don't bother. If it's been 2 weeks and it hasn't sold and I see the market isn't where I want it, but I expect it to swing, still don't bother. I'll leave it untouched. Buy orders, I tend to update about once per day, sometimes every couple days, depending on the item. But yeah, very infrequently do I touch my orders. It's a very AFK activity to make really good money. And of course, since I've shown all these on stream and I'm recording it, I'm also going to be dipping out of all these markets. That's why I showed this character instead of my current active trade character. I'm currently doing all my trades in Jita. I'm transitioning over, moving assets in Liquidus to start trading there where I can make more. But yeah, I mean, it's not bad. It's not bad. It's not for everyone. I haven't even bothered to show my spreadsheets in this, but I put a lot of time into spreadsheets too. It takes a lot of upfront investment to learn it, to set up your orders, to set up your spreadsheets, to track things, learn the market, learn the items, how are things made, who's consuming, who's producing. It takes a lot of time to learn that, but once you know it, you kind of just have it. It's good for a long time.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And they're like right-clicking on buy orders to place buy order is completely, yeah, that's so awesome. I've always been like, click the place buy order button and then manually adjust the numbers.
You know what's silly? I went and I bought a new mouse because it has a scroll wheel that I can unlock, and I just spin the wheel and it keeps spinning to change my prices.
Nice.
super easily. Just because I hate having to constantly scroll, I just spin the wheel and it keeps going. But yeah, I don't actually even often very much type into these windows. Eve's come a really long way and they've made the UI a lot easier for you.
Yeah.
Oh, and quick bars, by the way. If you are going to do trade, quick bars. I don't even search in the market anymore. I'll type in a name, or I'll go to my quick bars. But yeah, just use quick bars. Anyways,
So-
sorry, go
I've
ahead.
just like have clicked on something random. The FZ3A enduring gravimetric ECM. There was a massive spike of orders, and I can't quite work out why that would have been or what
Sure.
that was.
Is this in Amar or Jita?
In Jita.
Okay. FZ3A. This one, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. What are the prices you're seeing in Jita right now?
Oh, wait, it's all the right way around. Yeah, like say sells at 18.5 and then buying at 18.0, just over 18.
Okay. And what's your inventory?
I haven't got any. I just randomly clicked on it. Like it was more like, what do you think happened with this massive spike of orders that I'm seeing, or at least I'm seeing
I think there's three
days
things that
ago.
could happen. And I'm very confident in saying that these are the three things that could happen. Now, there might be another, but these three things could be it. A, it's used to produce a T2 item. Now this one's a meta one, so not likely, right? So it's either, when you see a spike, I'm not talking about the specific item, but when you see a spike like that, it's either it's used to create T2 items, the T2 item has exploded in price, people want to manufacture them to fill that market gap, they buy the T1 so that they can produce it. 2, someone's doing arbitrage. There could be a really great market in another trade hub, and so someone is buying it in one hub in great quantity to go fill that demand in the other hub. That's arbitrage. You buy somewhere cheap, you move it, you sell it expensive. And the third option is market manipulation. Well, okay, I'm gonna add a fourth. It could be part of a new doctrine fit out in nullsec, and so an alliance is buying, hundreds of thousands of them to outfit their entire alliance. That's possible. But more likely is someone's probably manipulating it. Someone probably saw this market, they saw things trading, they thought the margin was good, there's not much competition, and they have deep enough pockets, they're just gonna buy everything on the market, shoot the price way up, and then offload their inventory at a higher price. I have an entire page. In fact, I'll pull this up just for a second. I showed this one that I have on market fundamentals. This isn't my only page. I also have one on market manipulation, where I cover some of the details on how to manipulate items. So yeah, market manipulation is another really great example of something that someone could be doing to spike the price like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, anytime. I scheduled this session today so I could do a recording and edit it out and send it out to people to watch in their own time. But you can hit me up anytime in Eve, and I would be more than happy to teach you some of the ins and outs, the specifics, help you out on specific trades or whatever. Just hit me up anytime.
I've still got another question.
Go ahead.
Do,
Yeah.
do you use anything to track your trades? Like, say you bought something and you put it on a sell order, but it didn't sell, and then a few weeks later, maybe you look back on it and the sell and buy have changed where they are, and you don't remember what you bought it for, so what you should sell it for to still be at a profit, for example?
Yes, really wonderful question. So the end game history for your transactions doesn't last forever. I think you keep like a year of logs maybe, but then it starts to go away. So the only way you can really recover that kind of information, if it's within a year, you can go to your wallet and transactions, market transactions or normal transactions. And so you can find out from here what you spent. You can, and this would be my preference, use a tool like JEVE Assets to find all your transactions and look at them historically. You can copy and paste from JEVE Assets into an Excel sheet or something. When I do speculative stuff like that, I tend to use a spreadsheet and I will record the price. I will write down what I bought it for on average, how much I have, what I hope to sell it for, maybe some notes about the market as I saw them, and then I'll check up on that in a couple months. To give you an example, when I came back to this game after being gone for a while, I noticed I had, I think, something like 20 billion in my hangar, and I didn't know what all of it was for. I didn't know what I spent or anything. So I went to waiting to sell, my speculation waiting to sell, and this item specifically. I'm like, it's only 1 billion for this stack. I could have sworn it was more. So I went and I checked my spreadsheet from the last time I traded, and lo and behold, I had written down I purchased these for 190 million ISK. Now, being gone for a year, the price is half of what it used to be. That's unfortunate. I basically lost 1 billion ISK for going AFK, or taking a break. But the only way I knew that was the price is because I wrote it down. But there are tools that do it for you, like JEV Assets. Highly recommend it.
Yeah, I think that I found the page in JEV Assets that shows it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you could just enter the name of the item and see which orders you...
Yep, and you can filter it down as well. You can drill down into all your stuff and find out, like, maybe the lowest price, like find the low, the high, the median, and the mean for what you purchased, and it'll give you a really great idea of where the market needs to be for you to put it up and make all your ISK back. This is actually another great thing to do on it, by the way. Let's say you can't afford to just leave 1 billion ISK sitting in a container, or over here 1.5 billion, or even my ship hangar, I'm sitting on another 1.5 billion. Let's say you can't afford to just leave billions of ISK sitting around for a year or two. In that case, I would cut your losses, sell it. You need the ISK, sell it, make the ISK back over time. I typically make 5 to 10% return on my investment, depending on how much time I put into it. If I'm trading all day every day, I can make it back in a week, right? I can turn 10 billion into 12 billion in a week, no problem. I don't want to put that much time into it. So realistically, more like per month is 10 to 20% profit. So, if you take a loss by liquidating, you can make it back by trading. Make that money work for you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right, anything else?
Nope, not from me.
Thank you.
Yeah, cool beans. Take it easy, y'all.